name is Julius Wandera. I'm the Director for Corporate and Consumer Affairs at the Electricity Regulatory Authority. As Corporate and Consumer Affairs, we are responsible for consumer protection. It means that we are the only department in the organization whose particular focus is on making sure that electricity consumers have got their rights protected and have got a service when they need it. That role also involves public relations and corporate communication. We are responsible for speaking to electricity stakeholders. We are responsible for engagement with them in respect to all the matters that the regulator does. The department is also responsible for corporate planning, institutional planning activities. That means that we are the department that is responsible for drawing institutional plans, right from strategic planning through business planning to annual work planning for the organization. Consumer protection, in simple terms, is basically an enforcement of compliance on the side of utilities with respect to consumer rights. Utility regulators world over, either in electricity, water, or in telecom, wherever it is, have got consumer protection departments or units whose particular charge is to make sure that electricity consumers have their rights respected. Because electricity consumers are often dealing with very strong corporate entities that have got the lobby power, that have got the ability to work wherever they want to work. And this electricity consumer, who is probably a home user or an industry consumer, does not have that power. They cannot be able to stand in contestation with this service provider. So what happens is that the regulator stands in there as a protector of the rights of this person who does not have equal power with whoever they are engaged with. Consumer protection is embedded in all laws that relate to electricity supply, that govern the service that is provided by utilities or distribution companies. Consumer protection is embedded in a major law called the Grid Code. We have got a law that governs the grid. The grid are the lines that give us electricity, the main line that gives us electricity. We have got a law that has got several sections, and those sections talk about different aspects of that grid. One of these aspects, or one of the sections in that law is section 12 that talks about consumer protection. It talks about what a consumer needs to have. It talks about a consumer's rights. It talks about the obligations of a consumer. It talks about the obligations of a service provider. That's just one of the laws. There are several laws. We have the main law, which is called the Electricity Act. That is the main law, out of which all these other relevant regulations have been developed. The first thing that ERA did was to set up a complete consumer affairs unit. The Electricity Regulatory Authority set up a consumer affairs unit, which is composed of staff and whose role is basically to listen to electricity consumers and be able to resolve their issues. That aside, Electricity Regulatory Authority is heavily involved in awareness, and partly what we are doing right now is promoting awareness to let electricity consumers know that there is actually a regulator who is there willing to protect your interests and who is willing to listen to you when you have an issue which is unresolved. So Electricity Regulatory Authority did not stop on setting up a consumer affairs unit, but is heavily involved in awareness, promoting the knowledge so that people know and know their rights and know where to complain when they are offended. Then the other thing is that ERA is also involved in monitoring the service provided by license. The protection, the monitoring that we do to make sure that lights are on is all meant to protect electricity consumers to have the power when they need it. So the licensees do not have the laxity, or power distribution companies don't have the laxity to do what they do. We make sure that whatever they do has got our eye. We monitor the billing system, we monitor their enforcement systems, we monitor their supply systems, we monitor their investments, allow or disallow them into the tariff. So the regulator does so many things. Basically everything that a regulator does is purposely aimed at protecting consumers. If you are an electricity consumer living anywhere, in town, in the country where electricity is served, whether it's in Kampala or in Jinja, whether you're in Kabale, in Arua, whether you live in Dokolo, whether you live in Busia or you live in Namayingo, whether you're in Uyondo, wherever you are, and you have an electricity problem, the first step that you do is to go to the office that serves you electricity. And you may not physically go there. These companies have got access online. They have telephone numbers on how to reach them. Most of them have good call centers. They can be reached on Facebook, they can be reached on Twitter, they can be reached through WhatsApp, and they publish their lines every day. If you go to their offices and you've never paid attention, the next time you go, look at their notes board or look at the documents they give you. Their contacts are always there. When you have an issue with them, your first point of call, the first place you go to is for you to go to the person who supplies electricity to you. There are 9 companies, depending on where you are. It could be Umeme, it could be Electricity Distribution Company Limited, UEDCL, it could be Pakmex in a beam, You've been speaking to them and you're not satisfied. The next thing that you have to do is now to get to us. Get your phone or walk to ERA and call us and speak to us and tell us, I reported this matter to them, they did not pay attention to me, or I'm not satisfied with the solution they gave me, and so I have come to you. We will be very happy to receive you, and I can promise you we will resolve it. First of all, every electricity consumer needs to be very vigilant about the installation that is in their premises. We've had issues of people complaining, saying, my meter was stolen, and when I informed Umeme or UDCL, they decided to charge me for another meter. When that meter is installed in your premises, take responsibility for its security. You don't just allow anyone who comes putting on gumboots or who comes putting on an overall to climb that pole. You should not allow them. It's your right to stop them and ask them what are they doing and to ask them to identify themselves. Having said that, I also want to say that when you're lodging a complaint with an electricity supply company, it's important that you ask them to give you a reference number or anything that shows a record that you actually spoke to them. It's very important when you report to us as ERA for us to follow up using that record, using that reference number or whatever they have given you. It's important when we are speaking to them. Then they are able to identify you, they are able to actually state the necessary interventions needed to make sure that your power supply is stabilized or you have the equipment you need. As I close this, I want to tell you that there is enough capacity in the electricity supply industry right now to provide supply to you. That one I want to emphasize. There is sufficient capacity by the regulator, sufficient capacity by the utility players from generation through to transmission to make sure that you have enough electricity all the time. So what I want to say is that should you have an issue or a challenge with supply, please feel free to report to your provider first. Then if it's not resolved, please come to Electricity Regulatory Authority for resolution. We're going to be churning out a number of messages like this aimed at helping you understand what's going on. So I want to encourage you to subscribe to our pages, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Twitter. Reach us on WhatsApp, and the numbers are available. We're going to show them to you to make sure that you're actually in touch and you know what's going on. Thank you very much.